Splatoon Raiders adds even more crazy lore to the world of Splatoon, and this time focusing on the Salmonid and the Spiralite Islands. There's a lot to talk about with the main story, the ending of the game, and even the post-game, and some of the briny scrolls that help to develop even more information about this world and the story behind what's even going on here, because some people might be pretty confused with the story and where it went at the end because it got kind of crazy. Of course, spoilers here because we're talking about the end in the entire story of Splatoon Raiders. But also, please make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. It'll mean so much to me because we are super close to our goal of 400,000 subscribers, and you can make that happen by just showing some love and support on today's video. Thank you so much, and let's dive into the story and ending explained to Splatoon Raiders. The story starts off with us playing as the mechanic, or apparently a helicopter pilot, flying the Deep Cut members over to the Spiralite Islands. Upon reaching the islands, there seems to be some type of storm down below, with the center having a glowing radius. An explosion of light forms and emits from the middle of the storm, blowing the helicopter straight out of the air, stranding the three members of Deep Cut, Fry, Shiver, and Big Man, and including the helicopter pilot and mechanic, which is you. In fact, one of the briny scrolls shows the helicopter company that you actually come from as the player, the Gemma Aviation Company. So you set off as the mechanic, pilot, and now explore, and pretty much do all the work for Deep Cut, where you're exploring these islands and trying to figure out a way off, and also if you can collect some treasure along the way. Shiver calls for help from her shark, Master Mega, and also Fry with her eels, so technically they have a way back home if they absolutely need one, but of course, Deep Cut being Deep Cut, the treasure hunters that they are, want to actually search for all the treasures that the island has in store for it, because apparently Splatsville has gone completely broke. 60 billion G to be exact. How did this happen? Apparently the Splatfest festivals have been helping a little bit, but yeah, they're broke. So they make a group decision to go out and find treasure in the form of relics while they're here. And these things can bolster a lot of G's. But as you start your journey, you come across an old mech of some sort. And it seems to be a very big, useful item for the team in this journey, especially towards the end of the game. Now, we actually have a whole story about who made this mech and why is it here in the first place, and we'll get into that soon. But one of the members of Deep Cut would pilot the mech and help the mechanic out along his adventure. But something is definitely peculiar about these islands. The first thing is, it's absolutely invaded with Salmonid. I mean, they're everywhere. Everywhere you look, they come in hordes and are trying to fight you away and off the island. They are extremely ravenous and even crazier than the ones we've seen back in Splatsville. This time, they seem to even be covered in salt, and the developers of Splatoon Raiders have actually even said why this is, and it's actually pretty funny. Apparently, they have a natural desire to be cooked and eaten, making them magnetically attracted to the taste and properties of salt. So yeah, they want to be covered in salt. They want to be tasty, apparently. What is wrong with these guys? Well, what's making them so salty in the first place? That's why we call these the Spiralite Islands, because it's the spiralite. It's some type of salty stone structure that actually emits salt, and we can find these salt deposit crystals all over these islands, and they actually act as a form of currency and also a good material to build different projects, including very useful gadgets and weapons to help the mechanic on his journey. But not only that, we learned that these Salmonid are ancient. Some of them have been here for multiple generations, above and below ground in dens, and the more salt that they're covered in, the stronger they seem to be. It's almost like they're brining themselves with energy here. In fact, it seems the Spiralite Islands is where the Salmonid come to invade Splatsville in the first place. This seems to be their home. There's also 3 mythical Salmonid that live on the Spiralite Islands. They've been soaking in their salty energy for years, even developing little spiralite crystals on the backs of their bodies, also completely mutating them in the process. The Flapatizer was able to grow wings and fly in the air. Pain Course actually turned itself into a runaway freight train with wheels and explosive train cars. And as far as Deshurt goes, it seems to just be a baby fish that's already corrupted in salt deposits closet, which has somehow given him the ability to manipulate ice and snow and cover himself in an icy fortress. And trust me, it's not just the mythical Salmonid that look like this. Lots of the regular ones have mutated in weird ways. I mean, just look at the strong arms. It's this weird hawking Salmonid with 4 arms with different gadgets on each hand. It's actually terrifying. Now, we even get a briny scroll showing these Salmonid evolution. Like, we already know the Inkling one, so it actually shows us how these guys have formed and the different branching paths of their evolution. Now, I'm not super knowledgeable in fish. It shows a pretty basic start to their evolution. Now, one path they could take is what we see now, is where they start to wiggle on land. Not with feet, but just kind of able to walk and flop on land a little bit. Including this path where you can have the Salmonid we have today, where they can still maintain their fish appearance. One example of the alternate path might be when small fry turn into huge fry in space at the end of the story in Splatoon 3. We also have these 3 alternate forms they could take. We haven't seen any of these in the games yet. Maybe they're considered outcasts, zombies, or monsters, but one can actually grow 4 spider-like legs, one can walk on his fins, and the other just has some really cool wavy fins. Now, after defeating each mythical Salmonid, you'll come across these giant machines. There's 3 of them in total, and they can only be activated if a certain song is played, and of course by each member of Deep Cut. Of course, because why not? Once each song is sung and performed by one of the members of Deep Cut, a light will emit from the machine, showing a constellation of stars that will form some type of image. Each constellation actually has some sort of description. The first one depicting some sort of tower-like structure that's shining brightly with Salmonid surrounding it. The second one projecting a tower that can be seen in the center of a spiral, and a bunch of Salmonid going through the spiral to reach the center. And the final one that shows a constellation of a frightening monster with 3 large heads and seems to be spewing fire. Once all 3 devices are found and all 3 images are shown, 3 golden symbols seem to lighten on a door somewhere. But before we get into all that, let's talk about these briny scrolls real quick, because they're going to give us some more story. One of the scrolls talks about a family hairpin, and says long ago when Salmonids raided Splatsville, they stole this precious heirloom from Fry's great-great-grandfather. It's an Onaga clan hairpin that looks a lot like a spatula. Now this is important because it seems like each member of Deep Cut seems to have some type of family ties to this Salmonid ongoing war over the years. For instance, this map found in the Manta family's basement shows a location of the Spiralite Islands. The notes accompanying it are more than 100 years old. Apparently, the sender never returned from their journey to the islands, and their current whereabouts are unknown. Now in one of the field notes, you can see a bottle with a message in it. And shortly after, we get a batch of scrolls that might seem random that are just messages in bottles from one lover to another. The first one says, "Dearest angelfish, please forgive me and my bullheadedness. I can't bear another day without you. Life alone is dull and disappointing, like toasted seaweed that's gone all soggy. Tactically yours, Ichabod," and just some pictures of him crying looking out a window. The second one states, "Oh angelfish, though I know not where you are, I believe with all my heart that the sea will carry my love back to you. Just out of curiosity though, did you change your number? Yours with an ocean deep love, Ichabod." Now message 3 is where it gets very interesting. It states, "My sweet angelfish, it is decided. I'm turning over a new leaf, I've taken a part-time job, training begins today. Once I've saved enough money, I shall set off on my journey to find you. Wait for me, I probably won't be stopped. Yours in the labors of love, Ichabod." Now at first I had a theory that this could have been the person that set off to these islands. They took a job at Grisco, even drew a picture of them hunting Salmonid, and he's off to find his love somewhere. But on second thought, this is probably just a little fun side story that they threw in. I've also seen some theories online that this could be somebody that's had a huge crush on the mechanic, which is you, who's actually left and hasn't returned since. But I have a hard time believing that this would just be 3 random throwaway scrolls that mean nothing to the overall story, especially in the midst of some very important scrolls. But now we get into maybe who the person actually was that went to these islands. Because this scroll states, "There once was a family with a free thinker who loved machinery. This nonconformist went far away without permission and learned dangerous building techniques. They were exiled because of this, and during the fallout, they disappeared without a trace." Based on the symbol, this seems to be a member from Shiver's clan, the Hohojiro clan, that decided that they wanted to go off and work and tinker on machinery and explore, and it's probably the one that started exploring these islands and even made the mech in the first place that we found. Which then takes us on the journey of the explorer. Now it sounds like the explorer was prompted to go to these islands after the attack on Splatsville. It seems like all three tribes had a massive war against the Salmonid when they invaded so long ago. This scroll for the Hohojiro clan states, rushing in on sharks, the Hohojiro clan pierced through the pinkfish lines. Frightened of the wild warriors, the pinkfish retreated. Victory cheers carried on winds from the rocky shore echoed all the way out to the sea. The next one is of the Onaga clan that states, large numbers of pinkfish suddenly advanced on the Splatlands shore. As the first to notice, the Onaga clan engaged them, aided by many moray eels who worked themselves into a frenzy as a show of strength. And then one for the Manta clan, where it states, a wandering member of the Manta clan was suddenly surrounded by the pinkfish. The nomad repelled the pest with a mysterious dance and then went from home to home, guiding everyone's escape to high ground. These are more than just explanations for the showstopper specials that each member of Deep Cut can do, but it shows how their warriors fought when the Salmonid invaded so long ago, but this prompted this explorer to go to their islands and follow them back and see where they came from and why they invaded in the first place. While there, he watched the Salmonid from afar and took down notes as to what they were doing. He took down notes on things like the spiralite crystals. He noticed boss Salmonid carrying giant power eggs with them at all times, like some type of badge of honor to indicate their strength. He noticed them putting valuables in treasure chests, which us as the mechanic would find. He notices things left behind from even before the Salmonid, like eating utensils, huge forks sticking out of sandbars. He notices extreme spiralite exposure on some of the Salmonid, covering them in dense layers of salt, which seems to give them more and more strength. But before he heads back, he notices some ancient Salmonid civilization. Apparently, the Salmonid used to possess extremely advanced technology and was just a straight up advanced civilization before turning into feral monsters that live underground. He even came across one of the three special devices. It's some sort of projection device and seems to only be activated on special days like festivals for the Salmonid. And he even comes across a unique area that kind of resembles Atlantis, that leads into a giant tunnel that goes underground. He states it appears to be a complex that can only be entered on special days, and only by Salmonid who have completed some sort of training. I saw large Salmonids enter in droves, carrying something that seemed important. Perhaps I could get a peek inside if I were to sneakily tag along after them. But once following them inside, he comes across something terrifying. He states something terrifying at the center. Drives Salmonid mad. Gold. Must not let Salmonid near. So the explorer wanted to leave, but the fog surrounding the island made it nearly impossible, so he had to survive. So he built a bunch of devices and gadgets thanks to the energy in the spiralite. And this is how they ended up creating the giant mech in order to explore the islands in a safer way. They even made underground training facilities, and it's actually where we find all the guides to the different gadgets that were pretty much already created and planned out in blueprint form from the explorer. So thanks to the fog that never lifted, the explorer knows that they'll probably never leave these islands, so they made a map, sent it out to Splatsville, and also pretty much set up everything for the explorers to come one day. The explorer installed locks on the three devices that can only be activated through song from each member of the three clans, and it kind of worked as a way to seal the door to this powerful gold energy, whatever it is. Now, I'm still not 100% sure what these locks did because that gold energy still radiated and even blew the helicopter down to the ground. Apparently it was to save us some time on the next giant wave of Salmonid invading or something, but yeah, maybe you guys can help me figure that one out. And one of the last scrolls that we have seems to be this image that we have before the war. This is very reminiscent on Captain Cuttlefish and DJ Octavio, but this seems to be the leading members of each house clan and probably them prepping for war against the Salmonid and what they were going to do in order to take them out. But let's get back into the story. We've gathered all three devices and we've been warned about what's to come, and we can finally see that gold thing that's been mentioned by the explorer in the center of the whirlwind that is now finally lifted. It ends up not being gold at all, but instead a giant power egg. It then emits beams of light that burst through the clouds in the sky, bringing it to a dark crimson red and opening 7 holes into the clouds. This was actually foretold, all the way back as far as Splatoon 2. One of the sunken scrolls actually showed kind of like a biblical prophecy as to what would happen, saying when smoke rises from the 7 rings, the pink fish will emerge from the sea, devouring all the creatures of the land. The book of Madai, chapter 10, verse 10. Now, this is not the first time this has happened, it's just becoming more and more frequent since Splatoon 3, where they had to host big run events, where pretty much the Salmonid would now start to invade the major cities of Splatsville, and also the multiplayer maps that the Inklings and Octolings compete on. But in the background of these maps, you can actually see this event. You can see the clouds and the beams of light shining down on the islands in the background. That's exactly where we are in this story. In fact, Fry even mentions how she's got information that back at home in Splatsville, she knows that all the Splatsville is being invaded as this is happening. So there's a good chance that these big run events is actually timed up with the exact same time that Raider's story takes place in. So while everyone at home is fighting for their lives in the big run events with Grizzco, Deep Cut and the Mechanic are off on these islands having this happen right above them, which is actually pretty cool to think about, both of these events happening at the same time. The salted power egg then makes its way underground. Now the smoke rises and the golden power egg doesn't even emit this light until we found the 3rd device. So maybe that's exactly what the device did. By having the locks on it, it prevented the golden power egg from emitting this beam and causing all the Salmonid to invade once again. Now it's our job to make it to the Salmonid mess hall, that giant tunnel underground that the adventurer once followed the Salmonid into. But instead of just dropping down the giant hole, we're going to make our lives harder by going through multiple floors of dens from this giant underground temple. Here we enter the Salmonid mess hall, and this is pretty much the home of the Salmonid. These Salmonid are completely coated in salty brine, and they are the strongest of the strongest. They are the elite of the warriors. In the background, you can see giant statues and shrines for the Salmonid. But we slowly fight our way down each floor to reach the very bottom, which takes us to a very long hallway with that door that had the glowing symbols. And now that we have the 3 devices, we can now enter this door and find out what's going on once and for all. We reach the giant power egg, and immediately Big Man takes the mech and tries to drill straight into it. The power egg seems to be covered in 3 separate baby entities. And thanks to the power egg being soaked in salty spiralite over the years, it's been able to mutate into something crazy. The giant salt-covered, spiralite-lined, mutated Salmonid flies out of the water, almost godlike as it ascends out of the hole. It flies high into the clouds as a threat to the entire world. The spiralite lining cracks open and forms 3 heads to the top of the Salmonid as it flies above Deep Cut and the Mechanic. This is the Salmonarch, and we actually have some information on him. It was born from a huge golden power egg and has absorbed spiralite for hundreds of years, gaining immense power and growing rapidly. It leads Salmonid in the pursuit of the heavens. We have information from an ancient Salmonid named Salmon that on rare occasions, Salmonids with special abilities were born from power eggs preserved in spiralite. Of the Salmonids raised with care and exposed to vast amounts of spiralite, any born with special powers were dubbed the Salmonarch. Those called the Salmonarch get stronger with each generation. The current generation is thought to be the 7th. It then states the immense energy released by the power eggs of the Salmonarch creates distortions and magnetic fields. The Salmonarch can't control this energy, and large-scale electromagnetic field disturbances have caused Salmonids around the world to go berserk. It seems that over their long history, these creatures have developed a genetic tendency to avoid certain sounds. So in a way, Mr. Grizz is not a horrible guy for hunting the Salmonid. There still are normal Salmonid out there that are just living their lives being hunted by him and his company Grizzco in order to preserve their power eggs for his ultimate evil mission. But the Salmonid are an invasive species that needed killed off anyways, because even way back when, the 3 clans had to take out groups of them thanks to the power call of the Salmonarch. So in a way, Mr. Grizz was doing us a slight favor before he ended up having an evil plan and agenda behind all of it. But now we're left to take out the Salmonarch, which is a fierce battle against this creature. It's pretty much a giant Hydra Salmonid, and we have to collect power eggs in order to have a powerful drill attack thanks to Master Mega and Fry's eels, were able to take out all 3 heads and weaken the creature. After running out of power eggs to attack with, we had to make our way back to our now floating fortress in order to grab the crane and pretty much slam the drill bot into its last Spiralite energy deposit. But in the process, not only do the heads fly off of the Salmonid, but a giant crystal drill forms in its spot, formed of pure Spiralite energy. Yep, this whole game is all about salt. It's all the salt's problem here. But once again, thanks to the help of Master Mega and the eels, we now have super flying Megalodon that's able to bump our mech all the way up into the air to come down, drilling straight down into the Salmonarch, destroying him in the process and slamming him deep into the ocean. The Salmonarch is defeated and the day is saved. Deep Cut can now finally head home, except they don't, because they're extremely greedy and they want to find more treasure, I guess to help Splatsville, so it's not that greedy. But after all the fuss, something underground emits some energy. 3 golden burners light up in a tunnel deep underground where the golden power egg first rested. And after the fog has now lifted, 3 new mysterious islands form around the outskirts of the Spiralite Islands. Each island has pieces of 3 brand new relics that we must take to these 3 gold burners, and they're all 3 different pieces of cookware. Once placed on the burners, a giant door opens to the bottomless buffet, which is a series of floors that we have to complete, which I think I saw online. There's like over 700 of these things. It's incredible. But thankfully for the main story, we only have to get to floor 100, which then gives us a new creature to deal with. We enter a final shrine filled with gold and lots of imagery of salt shakers everywhere. In fact, it looks like this entire area is nothing but a giant salt mine, with Spiralite decorating every statue and literally lining the walls. And waiting for us in the center is the last relic, a golden salt shaker, because of course. But it's attached to the secret boss, Lord Saltomatum, which is pretty much just Huge Fry, but this time completely decayed and very much aged and dried out from all the salt that it's been around all of these years down on this 100th floor. It also, for some reason, swims upside down, and the relic actually sits on its chin, and it just kind of floats like a genie. It's a strange fish for sure. But we then take out Lord Saltomatum and all of the Spiralite crystals inside of him just detonates. And we finally have the last relic, which is a giant salt shaker. I guess technically it's also maybe just a salt grinder, but it's labeled as a sparkling treasure with a lingering scent of salt, kept deep within the Spiralite Islands. Its divine beauty captivates the viewer. We also get a final briny scroll talking about this relic, stating long ago, following rumors about the presence of delicious salt, a school of salmonids journeyed in a spiral-shaped cluster of islands. It said that they became obsessed with the salt and forgot where they came from. So yeah, they were all drawn here from the salt. This technically isn't even their homelands. They were born and probably lived somewhere else before finding and being captivated by this salt to the Spiralite Islands. In the field notes for Lord Saltomatum states, it floats around nonchalantly, as if to flaunt the golden relic. The weapons piercing its body are proof of its ability to repel relic-seeking attackers. It unleashes a variety of attacks similar to those of other salmonids that inhabit the Spiralite Islands. So part of the reason for his decay and all the forks and weapons sticking out of his body is from intruders trying to steal the golden relic from him, and he's fighting them off. So he's been battle-hardened. I don't know if somebody has come down to floor 100 before, or if they just fought him above ground until eventually he hibernated down here, but it seems like he's fought off many treasure-seeking pirates over the years. Now this is the very interesting one. It states it used to serve as a guard for the relic, which is said to produce Spiralite. So all the Spiralite on the island, the salt covering the Salmonid, and even the Salmonarch, the golden egg covered in salt, all of this is because of a single salt shaker. This salt shaker left behind by some human caused all this distress to inklings and octolings everywhere because of what it's done to these salmonid. It's kind of crazy. It's said that Lord Saltomatum fell victim to the temptation to try just a taste of Spiralite. It became obsessed with the taste and decided to keep the relic for itself. It hasn't always been upside down, it just adopted that style at some point. It got its scars in its younger days while trying to become stronger and more delicious. It's been exposed to Spiralite for an unfathomably long time. Whether any reason or emotion remains is unknown. With every relic now found, Team Deep Cut and the mechanic can now make their way back home to Splatsville, and they also now have more than enough money to finally get Splatsville out of debt. In fact, if you refight the final boss, you'll be granted with this thank you for playing screen that shows everybody going back to Splatsville and finally having enough money to save all of their debt problems. So this seems to now finally be the end of the Salmonid arc, and it also kind of feels like the end of the Splatoon trilogy as a whole. We've been through all the stories of all the different agents, from Agent 3, the new Agent 3, Agent 4, Agent 8, Agent 8 multiple times thanks to Side Orders DLC, Pearl and Marina, Callie and Marie, and obviously now Deep Cut with Pearl, Marina, and Big Man. And we're finally what seems to be at the end of the story for all three of these games, and it's been a special run. I can't wait to see if Splatoon 4 is going to be a completely new direction with a new location, new characters, and a new storyline altogether, but this was a great new addition and finally adding some more closure to the mystery that is the Salmonid. But if you enjoyed today's video and recap on the story, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Splatoon Raiders and Splatoon in general. And like always, I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one. See you guys.